We would like to dedicate this very special episode of Learning Shared to Sue Carpenter, wife of Barry, in fond and loving memory. Welcome to the Learning Shared podcast. So Learning Shared is a space for anyone with an interest in supporting the needs of vulnerable learners in our society, including those with special educational needs and disabilities. We'll be hearing from and talking with a wide range of colleagues and stakeholders, including teachers, specialist practitioners, school leaders, researchers, as well as parents and carers. They'll be sharing creative, inspiring ideas, effective practice, and things they've learned along their journey. With that in mind, please get in touch if you'd like to suggest a topic for a future episode, or if you'd like to be involved in any way. You can visit us at www.learningshared.org or tweet us at _learningshared. The Learning Shared podcast is brought to you by Evidence for Learning and the EFL Send community. This is a growing community of teachers, practitioners, school leaders, researchers and academics that support children, young people and adults with special educational needs and disabilities, or indeed any form of additional learning needs. You can find out more about the EFL Send community and Evidence for Learning at www.evidenceforlearning.net. I hope you enjoy this episode. In this episode, Professor Barry Carpenter brings together a panel of school leaders and parents to discuss and explore how schools can work with families of children and young people with special needs to create a genuine bridge for family-centred practice. During the episode, Barry refers to a recent meeting that brought together over 100 schools to look at this topic. And we've put a link to a video recording of that meeting on the Learning Shared website at www.learningshared.org. And if you select episode 21, you'll be able to watch the video, which contains presentations from Barry as well as school leaders and parents. And on the episode page, we've also listed links to various articles and resources.
Welcome everyone to another in the Learning Shared podcast series. We've recently had a wonderful event where we looked at family-centred practice, where schools were encouraged to move from traditional thinking around partnership with parents to a wider, more 21st century honed definition of working with families, embracing members of families that the family themselves define as what the literature calls significant others in their lives. In this meeting today, I'm delighted to welcome not only practitioners from schools, but again, we have some terrific parents with us who are going to input their perspective and calibrate our thinking around how we evolve, develop, and enrich that partnership with families. So I would just like to invite the four people who are with me today to just introduce themselves. If Vijita, I could start with you, and then Joe, and then our two wonderful parents who are with us today. Vijita Patel.
Hello, my name's Vijita Patel. I'm the principal at Swiss Cottage School, which is a 2 to 19 special needs school in the London Borough of Camden. We have the absolute privilege to work with incredible children and young people to unlock their talents. And at the heart of our school community is a very conscious approach to our partnership with families. but fundamentally how we're thinking about that relationship, so that it is about what we're going to be able to achieve beyond their time at our school provision, so that what we're able to do is actually empower all practitioners, but also the families to be able to support that smooth transition for our children and young people into the wider community, so that they're accepted and their abilities and talents are really unlocked as they are equal members in society.
Thank you, Vijita. And Joe, good morning.
Good morning. I'm Jo Williams from Debunk School in Chester, which again is an all-age special school which caters for pupils with SLD and PMLD. And again, we feel very strongly about working closely with our families, because our curriculum, very much like Vijita said, is focused on preparing our pupils for life beyond school and to enhance their life around them while they're in school. So very much key life skills. And all members of the family are very much involved with that. A lot of the outcomes that we identify for our pupils very much involve enhancing their life at home. So for us, that connection with our families is right at the heart of what we do.
Thank you, Joe. And I'd certainly recommend to anybody listening to this podcast to go to the earlier event that we recorded, where you gave that wonderful presentation of a study that you carried out, and the rich information that you prepared there really gave us a solid base for why we need to have family-focused, family-centred practice at the heart of our school communities. So, Maria, good morning to you too.
Good morning. My name is Maria Schulz. I've got two sons, one with special needs who is 13 years old, and a son in mainstream who is 15 years old. I'm passionate about parent participation. I think we have a really important role as parents to play in our child's learning. And I think we are the red thread. We are the lifelong teachers for our children. But we need to really work together with the schools to get this right all the way. And I think we can really empower each other if we get it right.
Thank you. And you're absolutely right there about being the thread. I often say that it is those parents who are the first, the last, and the enduring educator of their child. You know, we as teachers are privileged to walk a certain journey with your child as co-educators with you. But as Vijita's already alluded to, when our paid work, our paid employment is over, your journey continues. And certainly I found with rearing my daughter Kate, who's now in her 30s, that, you know, everything you learnt with the teachers is inevitably valuable, their insights, but constantly we need them to share their script with us, so it makes us stronger for the days when we walk alone with our son or daughter.
Absolutely, yeah.
Welcome. And Sadia.
Hi, good morning. I'm Sadia Mahmud-Marshall. I'm mother of a beautiful daughter called Amaya. She's 19 years old now and in the process of transition. She's been at Swiss Cottage School since she was 3 years old. So we've had a long journey in the school. I'm also passionate about parent participation, but also I'm passionate about Amaya, the social inclusion of Amaya in society. So not only school development, but her inclusion and her rights in society. And I'm basically her voice. She's nonverbal, and I'm her advocate and her lobbyist, and I'm her voice.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. We're going to be in for a really good conversation today. So I'd like to ask our two colleagues from the school perspective, if you like, Vijita and Joe. When you enroll families in your school, what is it you need from the families? What information do they hold that will make you and your staff teams do their job better? Vijita?
It's such an important question, and one where our philosophy as a school is almost to take the question and think about what the families are going to need from us. So we know that they're taking the biggest step, which is to trust us as a school to engage their child in a positive climate for learning, to really be quite forensic about how we can design learning around their strengths, around the priorities, and holding on to that bigger picture. So as a school, I believe that what we feel is one of the most important factors that we could ask from our families, and we do, is to recognize the potential of investing in that relationship, to understand our core values as a school, and in many ways, the most powerful things our families can give to us is an active participation in that relationship and really open communication. We want to move away from this sense of there being risk or judgment. We want a mutual relationship. And if we can get that right, then actually the relationship is going to hold different forms of information during their time in different stages at the school. It also allows us to ensure that there's almost a real sort of team spirit about the way that we're able to work together. And it ensures that as pupils make progress, the type of information that's needed is going to change if circumstances, factors in the home environment or outside of the school environment are influencing the profile of the pupil during a specific period, whether that's medical circumstances, the dynamic of the home environment, factors that could be in the local community. If we get the relationship right, those key pieces of information are going to weave into what we design for learning so that we can put that together with that valuable information that will sit around all of that sort of expert evidence that sits with the range of professionals. I would say the most important fundamental for us as a school is recognizing that the parents, carers, families are the experts of the child, yes, and we need to be able to learn from them.
Yes. Absolutely. And that's a wonderful sentence to finish on there. And I think you've beautifully articulated that team around the child, and the family now becomes a part of your team and you part of theirs. So how enriching is that? And Joe, what would you add to that?
Trust is something that I wrote down when I was thinking about these questions as well. And I would definitely echo that. We need parents to trust us and buy into the fact that we are joining forces with them to support their child. We are fortunate enough, we've just recruited a second family support worker. So, they would always visit families. They would get all of those details, a bit like Vijita said, we need all of those details. Sometimes parents have had real struggles and they've worked really hard to overcome certain things. And it's not just, these are the positive things I want and these are my aspirations. It's actually, these are the real struggles that we've already had. And the last thing I want is for them to go backwards because somebody does a little thing that actually I've worked really hard to overcome. And sometimes those finer details are so important to parents and they have such a big impact on life at home. We need to work together. We need to be a team. We need all the tiny, weeny details of, this word has an association with this particular thing. All the things that are not obvious to us because we haven't lived with that child or that young person. And those are the details that we need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you were right to start there with trust. Because if we get that trust right, the bond will be so enriching for the families and for us in terms of the quality of what we can do. And again, I loved your point there about those key words. We still, I've had it only very recently, a teacher realizing a term into working with a child that if only she'd asked about those key words, the child would have been far more responsive than they had been. So it's again that the richness of information family members hold. So obviously I need to do the converse of your responses to our two parents this morning. So Maria, do you want to say what you feel that you need from families? What's been your experience?
I think just to kind of weave back also to what both Vijita and Joe were saying, that trust and relationships are two very big things. I think the relationship is really crucial in giving a parent the confidence to talk openly with their child's teacher about their child's learning. I think it's really worth investing in creating that bond quite early on. And also it needs to be easy for the parent to get in contact with the school, the parent or the family or the carer or the grandparent. A relationship leads to better family engagement, and ultimately just leads to better outcomes for the child.
Yeah.
I think another thing I want to point out is the partnership working. Parents want to work in partnership with the school, and it can only really happen if the school listen to and see the parent as an equal partner, because the parent do sit with the expert knowledge of their child. And I think whenever a parent makes a contribution into their child's learning journey, it needs to be valued. If you get that right, I think you end up empowering both the school and the parent, and possibly creating a pathway for real success. Yes. And I think the last thing I want to say is parents want high quality staff. They want staff who have the ability to develop a meaningful relationship with their child. They want staff who know their child, who are patient, who are caring, and who are kind, and most importantly, who can engage their child in learning.
Just absolutely. I love your phrase there. Better family engagement leads to better outcomes. And Joe and Vijita, what are we all about? We're about those outcomes, and whether it be outcomes for Ofsted or outcomes for reporting to other audiences. So actually, here we've got an essential ingredient. It is that family engagement that'll make those outcomes better, but ultimately better for the student, for the young person. And thinking, Sadia, where you're at now with your daughter in transition, those outcomes are really crucial, aren't they, to the quality of life that your daughter is going to have in her next environments, social inclusion settings.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I would like to echo what the other speakers have said about building trust and relationship. That's really important. All children are unique, but our special needs children are even more unique. And my daughter is nonverbal, so for staff to know, she doesn't have keywords, but she has key signs. Whether it's tapping the head, whether it's rubbing her tummy, whether it's a look, these are key signs. And this is where we trust the school to get to know our children and understand what she's trying to say with those signs, and building that bond and faith, because my daughter doesn't have the keywords. So I think that's really important. I think transparency and good communication is key for families. As I said, my daughter's nonverbal, so having clear communication bridges between school and home is really important, because she can't come and tell me what's happening. So be it in the school diary, be it in, phone call, an open door policy where we can walk in and speak to staff, or we can phone or email, is really important for me. Obviously, learning aspects, as Maria touched on, is really important, that we have quality staff and quality therapists to bring out the best of our children, to ensure that they reach their potential. For me and my family, the most key thing for her schooling is that she reaches her potential, whatever that potential is, and the school is able to bring that out. So, reassurance that our children are reaching their potential is really important. The coordination is not just the learning, it's the coordination with therapists, speech and language therapists, occupational therapists, physios. So we get much more of a holistic learning environment and attainment environment. So that's really important. Obviously, safety and well-being, like for any parent, is really important. And for us, it's crucial. So it's not just the physical safety, it's the well-being. Feeling that a child is happy, accepted, reaching its potential, and happy amongst school, the staff, but also amongst its peers. So the safety and the well-being aspect also, I think, for families is extremely important.
Absolutely. I think, again, you've very skillfully there given us the big picture, but also the intrinsic picture, things like the signs. The early interviews, the early meetings we have with our families when they enroll children in our schools are vital to get the bits there about signs. I have a little grandson who's just started a nursery, and he'd used baby sign. And they never asked about that. And because of COVID restrictions, the interviews were not, in fairness to the nursery, as they might have been. But when his mummy pointed out to them one day that when he tapped his chin, he was actually making the sign for eat. Mm-hmm. Suddenly, it was a revelation to the nursery staff. And it's those, again, it echoes with what not only you've said, but Maria said, those little bits of information, those key words. And Joe and Vijita, I think you'll agree, those are essential for the starting points in learning. And that initial engagement, and LearningShared has had a big focus on engagement recently, but those are key to the quality of engagement we had, and as Maria said as well, the family engagement. So we've got this, if you like, holistic, to use your word, Maria, this holistic concept of engagement at all sorts of levels. It's absolutely key. In the earlier meeting that we had, that you all made your valuable contributions to as well, we looked at the notion that I had developed over some years now of a self-defining family, that all of our families are different. All of them, again, as you've implied, Sadia, are unique. But still, schools do just talk about partnership with parents, and therefore they're only focusing on two people, whereas in reality, there's more than just two people in rearing that child. And in many cultures of the world, particularly if you took the Maori in New Zealand in their concept of whanau, it's a much wider group of people who are seen to have responsibility for rearing that child. And I just wondered if from your experience, and starting with our two parent contributors, if you've got people that are, if you like, not traditional blood relatives, that you feel are significant others in the life of your special children. Sadia, do you want to?
Yeah. So, I mean, the family social unit obviously is extremely important. So you've got the parents, but for me, it's way beyond that. You've got the siblings,
Yes.
You've got the grandparents, you've got the cousins. You know, we have an Asian extended family. So, you know, there's not just the parents, there's, you know, the grandparents, the cousins, the uncles and aunties. And ironically, with COVID, we've become even closer because we used to meet once a year, but now we're actually meeting once every 10 days through Zoom. You know, all the cousins going, so between Spain and, you know, whether it's Pakistan or in Australia or Singapore. So I think that's really, extended family units really big support for us, emotional and physical support, you know. I think we rely on a larger community who provide support, socialization, and stimulation for our children. So in our case, we have a very large support network. Obviously, we start with the school team. It's beyond the education. When Amaya starts a new year, we create a special bond with the teacher and the TAs. And it's almost, I actually can say they become part of family.
Excellent.
You know, because sometimes they come to Amaya's birthday parties. You know, we load family events on the EFL. So the teachers and the TAs really of the particular class Amaya's assigned to, I can actually say in most terms, you know, they become part of the family, extended family. Obviously, Amaya has several carers. So we have one particular carer who comes every day after school. Now she's part of the family. She cares for Amaya while I'm working or looking after the other children, but she has dinner with us. She'll support me when Amaya hurt her ankle. She went, you know, above and beyond, helping me in extra hours to look after her. So the carers, whether it's in the week or in the weekends, you know, also become part of the extended family for us. You know, so they go on holiday with us. They celebrate birthdays with us, you know, so that's a very important component. The other thing we have are buddies. So Amaya participates in the short break program of Camden, and we have a particular buddy from her short break program who comes on Saturdays, sometimes on weekends. And that's to support with her integration into local community. So she'll take her shopping in Waitrose to buy, I give her a little shopping list and money. So she gives her, you know, takes her into the community for that, or into the park, or into an indoor play area, or takes her swimming. But it's this communication with local community is what she supports us with, you know, to give us respite. So while we have respite, Amaya is integrating into community through buddy program. Now, they're also part of our extended family.
Yes.
We have volunteers who come. Amaya belongs to the Spectrum, which is a medic volunteer group. I think it's at UCL University. And we have two lovely young budding students who are studying to be doctors who come twice a month. And they just play with Amaya. And it's amazing how they're taking back. Amaya's teaching them and giving them a richness of to take back into the medical field so that they will eventually become doctors and understand our children. But at the same time, you know, she's getting lots out of them as well. And they play and I can hear them laughing in the room. So they're also part of our extended family. the volunteers who participate in our life, which is amazing. And then Amaya also belongs to I Can Dance, which is a lovely dance movement therapy group. She attends on Saturday. She's been doing that as an after-school club at Swiss School since she was 3 years old. And, the workers who work with her, support workers, have been with her since she was 3, and they're also part of our family. Sometimes they come and visit her. Again, they come to her birthday parties. So, it could be endless, actually, but our family unit goes way beyond the parents and the family. It's the community, it's volunteers, it's buddies, it's after-school clubs. It's a huge extended family, which is a bridge between our family and the community.
I think your practical description there is the best definition of family-centered practice that I've ever heard. And I talked about those 3 concentric circles. And Vijita, I think your pages, if you ever were to do that with Sadia, would need to be huge, because yes. The definition is so all-embracing. It was a beautiful example. And Maria, I'm sure you've got some lovely examples for us too.
Yeah, I would basically echo whatever Sadia has just said, because I think particularly we work super hard as parents of disabled children. They effectively are unable to go out and create those relationships themselves. So we work for them to have people around them who are loving and caring. And I think, what we invest as parents in that extended network is probably quite a lot more than your sort of box standard mainstream family would do under normal circumstances. I think, we also have lots of volunteers and carers and various people coming in and out of our lives. And I think particularly we've been very lucky to have the same carer for over 10 years. And he literally just became like a big brother and sort of my third son. Although he's sort of has Jamaican heritage, and we always joke with him about how he obtained his Danish genes after he was born, because he's just so much part of our family, and he's learned sort of lots of Danish culture, so that's quite fun. I think in terms of what Sadia was saying, every year at school when our children go into a new class, you start afresh with the teacher and the class team, and you really, as a family, want to build that relationship that I was talking about before, which I think goes throughout school lives. One of the main things of success is, you want to have that relationship quite early on and established as soon as possible. And I think we've been lucky throughout our journey so far at Swiss that the passion that you get from the teachers, if something bad has happened in your family, they're there worrying with you, worrying about how they can support your child to get through, whatever you're dealing with. And also in turn, you feel that whenever you've achieved something at home, they are almost as happy as you are as a parent, and you really, really feel that relationship and partnership. And I think that just, makes it feel like family, like extended family.
Okay, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Joe, listening to those eloquent descriptions, do you feel that reflects the ethos you have in your school and the way you practice?
It's absolutely fantastic to hear that. Actually, when you hear it just said from a parent perspective, the number of people that are wrapped around our children and they all love and care for them and they all want the best for them. I think using EFL has really made us very aware of this, of how many people have an impact on the lives of our children. And actually, a lot of those other people, like you're describing, respite carers, etc., we've had similar experiences where, it is with these wider members of the family or, wider people who support the child. They actually have breakthroughs sometimes that we haven't had with those children, or breakthroughs that the parents themselves haven't had, and it's come in another way. But if we're all aware of that, that is a really powerful thing in terms for us planning next steps with those children. With EFL now, we've actually got a few grandparents and a few respite carers, mother-in-laws, etc., that are joining with the accounts, which is really exciting. And just the other day, we had a teacher came and asked, there's a young man in my class who goes out a lot into the community with his PA, and she would like access to EFL because she feels that she could link with us and the work that she's doing with them in the community. She's listened to Mum describe what we're doing in school, and she thinks she could help, and she thinks she could develop that. And she has that one-to-one time with him, which Mum doesn't have because he has, a few other siblings. We've got another young lady that goes to a respite carer for weekends, and she associates going there with doing all sorts of lovely practical girly things, and she loves it. And the respite carer now is uploading evidence quite regularly of cooking activities, etc. Things that are so exciting for us to see in school and so useful as well. They just give another, another window into that child's experiences and what they like doing, and things we can develop in school. So EFL's, I would say, it's developed our awareness of this hugely.
Absolutely. And Joe, that's a beautiful insight. And I think I'm going to flip it to Vijita and say, Vijita, if from your experience, because I know as well you've been using the parent portal, although I would say to Alan, maybe we're looking at rechristening this the family portal. Would you like to share with us some of the words Joe's just said there and how it's enriched practice at your school?
Absolutely, and what Joe describes is really important. So on the educator's side and even the school leadership element of it, it helps us understand that the construct of the family, and that can be so textured, but also variable across our different communities as well. So what you've challenged quite a few of us to think about, Barry, is that notion of family and how that's going to not be one sort of static model. It's allowed us to really take a step back and really consider, as an all-through special school, just like Joe's school, there's the way that the family is creating that community in the earliest years, because they need to have a connection with those other family members or professionals or external specialists to help them really make sure that those that they are trusting around their child are recognizing those core characteristics of their child at the earliest stages. When we get towards what we feel is like our middle school, we notice that families are starting to think about those relationships because they want to reduce dependency, increase flexibility in their child recognizing different adults, the role of sort of carers and even advocates to support their child to start to build trust with others outside of the core family unit. And then as we get into sort of our sixth form, we've noticed that families are very much starting to build that family community that's going to play a very crucial role outside of 25 plus, is sort of this way that we see it, but not because there's any deficit. It's not because there's a gap that needs to be filled. They're extending the notion of family because they want a real awareness of who their child has become as an adult. They want those who are going to recognize their potential and actually build on that progress, because it's not that end of education means, and that pathway into adulthood means that there's a predefined destination. And actually that new sort of design of a family, everyone's playing a role in being able to advocate for the young person, but to also shape what that pathway is. And I think that's the most powerful side for us on what EFL is enabling. It gives quite a systematic tool to say advocacy is going to be evidence informed. It is going to be based off of journey of progress over time, not just in those final years or at a particular stage. And it's a great way to also give a common language around who these important people are for the young person themselves, because the young person's able to represent that. We don't need to represent that for them. That's the interesting sort of, I think, sort of moment we've come to. So everything around person-centered planning, what EFL is going to do to wrap around that is a curious next step for us.
Fabulous. And I think, Sadia and Maria, you've both had experience of siblings using EFL. Maria, would you like to start and tell us how that went?
Yeah, so I think when Alex was younger and my other son was younger as well, I think it really helped demystify what Alex's school was all about. Because I think, obviously it's a completely different setup. And when you have, a young child just seeing his brother being nonverbal and not really being able to put on his clothes or play or do, the things that my other son would do. Yeah. It's just like, so what will school be like for him? And then just actually being able to watch small clips of Alex doing various things at school and playing ball in the playground and seeing pictures from school trips and him sort of engaging in cooking sessions. It's been really, really helpful for just decoding what school was like for his disabled little brother. Yeah. And I actually think, so during lockdown and the whole COVID situation has brought a different aspect into it because one of the teachers had done some pre-recorded yoga sessions. And actually I thought, well, that could be quite fun for them to try out together. And I think just because it's sort of step by step and it's talked through and you can pause it. And I mean, Oliver, he looked at it a couple of times. And then after that, he felt confident to actually do a session with Alex. And over time, it became like a weekly thing that they did together. And actually just, watching, being able as a parent also to step back and just watch that happening was really wonderful. So I think those are the sort of two examples of how it's been good for us
just powerful examples of how the Evidence for Learning app can not only reach out to the family, but then permeate that family and embrace others and in some ways giving your son confidence with Alex. Yeah. And those things are so important. When my daughter Kate was in the school system, we didn't have anything as wonderful as the Evidence for Learning app. But I certainly believed in those latter years of her siblings being part of the annual review meetings because they, if we think the child years have been difficult, let me tell you, I don't want to depress you particularly, Sadia, but the adult years can be hell. And because there are fewer services and we really are having to battle and advocate and be that confident champion for our son and daughter. And we all have to face the reality that we won't be here one day. And I want Kate's brother and sister to be able to attend whatever review meetings are happening for Katie's adulthood, to be able to articulate what her needs are, to be that advocate that you have so powerfully been. But we have to face the reality we can't be that perpetually. And it's just so good to have them there because actually I came away from some of those meetings having really rich conversations with Matthew and Grace about Kate, about her future. And their insights sometimes were better than mine because they're nearer in age. There is an age gap between us and our children. And I thought, Sadia, when you were saying about those two young people coming from UCL, the medical students, actually, your daughter is meeting with her peers, isn't she?
Absolutely.
Difference.
Yeah. They're just a few years older than her, 3-4 years. They're her sister's age, Yeah.
So it's a more normal peer group, isn't it? We're not their peer group. We have a different role. So no, I think that's just a fabulous experience. And I just wonder too now, thinking about that pathway to adulthood, and Sadia, I want to bring this back to you. In what way do you see EFL and all the information that's there and the opportunities it gives? How do you plan to take that forward through the transition and beyond?
Well, first of all, give you some examples of how EFL is sort of seeing us through this transition. It's really interesting. The school has been uploading videos on Amaya doing sort of informal employment pathway skills. So photocopying, laminating, shredding paper. So, again, that's been a shock to us because we didn't even know Maya could do all that sort of thing. So that's been really enlightening, that she's been doing all these sort of potentially some sort of internship or work placement.
I love that video in the previous podcast study of her pushing that trolley from
exactly.
to classroom.
That is wonderful.
Brilliant. And an expression of autonomy that, probably they don't always show us as their parents. Yeah,
absolutely. Pushing a trolley around the school, knocking on doors and asking what sort of cereals they want, and using her iPad to talk through that. So, that's been really interesting, is that EFL has showed us how that she is going to possibly move from school and transition into college or adult life or possibly some sort of employment. So that's been really enlightening. And to tell you the truth, if we hadn't seen those videos put up on EFL, I don't think we would have believed it, So that's been amazing. I think the EFL will support us also in the transition, in the sense that I believe the speech therapists are already starting to film some of Amaya's use of her communication through her communication app on the iPad to demonstrate to her college, where she's going next, Alexander Center, on how Amaya communicates. Because that's crucial for us. As I said earlier, Amaya's unique. So she doesn't have keywords, but she has signs. And she navigates her way through this clicker app on the iPad. And she's actually quite communicative and put sentences together. And so I think the school want to use EFL, especially at COVID, where they can't go in and have school meetings. They're using it to share with the speech therapist that she'll be transitioning on to college, and the physios and the OTs. So that's, I believe, already happening now. And then I guess, so we will be using EFL, the school is using EFL to showcase where Amaya is at, in terms of her learning, her life skills, in terms of her communication, so that we have some, follow through at college. So they have a good picture where Maya's at, simply because, we can't do those face-to-face meetings at the moment. So that's crucial. I mean, during the pandemic, it's crucial that the college, we have a proper transition process in place, despite not having physical meetings, on where Amaya's at in her skills, in her life skills, her learning, potential employment pathway, communication. So the teachers and the therapists are using EFL as part of the transition process, as a handover to a college, which is extremely reassuring for us.
And those videos are better than 1,000 words on a report, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Just give such insights. And, Joe and Vijita, as fellow teachers, we know how hard we've tried with the words on paper before, or typed via the computer, to capture the essence of the attainment and achievement. And haven't we been frustrated at times because we didn't have the words to describe the minutiae but yet significant types of attainment that our young people are going through? And so I think to bring this together, we've listened to some powerful examples from our two wonderful parents there. It's so rich. I just want to commend you both, because as somebody who's been into family-centered, family-focused practice for so many years, both as a parent, as an academic, and as a teacher, I still don't think I could get anywhere near the quality of descriptions you give to that. You bring such vibrancy in life, and I just applaud everything you've said today, because I hope so many ears will get to hear the messages you've given. But Vijita, could I start with you as to how you would say to school, what you would say to schools who've yet to sample, if you like, the parent, the family dimension of the Evidence for Learning app? What would you say to convince them that this is so worthwhile?
I think we're in an accountability system, and I can see sometimes how that actually leads to the sense of sort of risk that school leaders, governing boards may feel. But if they can take a step back and recognize, if they look at their use of EFL at the moment and how that's promoting a reflective inquiry for their teachers and the support staff, and then just take a lens and consider what that could do for reflective inquiry for families. And the fact that it's not really a conduit, it's really a bridge, that sort of co-reflection is something that has such potential, because it can be the piece that allows families to have total ownership of their empowerment. Yes. We don't empower them. This is their child's data. Yes. Accessing that allows families to decide how they want to utilize it. We've heard great examples from Maria and Sadia. None of those ideas have come from the school. They know their family. They know how they want to use this for their network, how they want to embrace it for their, Alex and Amaya themselves and their own identity of their strengths and what they can do. My most important message to any school that's considering how much do we want to release would be, why isn't it all released? Let's look at that answer and ask, what is it that's causing that resistance? And if there is any sort of level of curiosity or concern about what it may mean for different stakeholders, choose a group of parents, let them pilot it, let them show you the evidence base if that would build the confidence. We as schools don't need to try to make that plan. If we can always take those steps to have parents as a working group or a working party, actually they're going to give us the greatest sense of, this is what was beneficial. If there's a developmental aspect on the quality of edits, on the types of observation notes, etc., the working group's going to be able to articulate that to other groups of families, because in all of this, the greatest learning I would say we've had as a senior team is at no point did anybody see this wrapped around the terminology perfection. It was never about that perfect EFL journal, because that whole concept went out the window the moment it was wrapped around reflective inquiry. And then we're all in this sort of journey of engagement together. And I think some schools, not through any fault of their own, I have no judgment. I can recognize how there might be a level of hesitation, because it is such an accountability model. We've got to have the conviction to say what we're doing for our schools is right for us, is right for our families, and the accountability can come after. And if we're making those decisions in the right way, we're doing the best for our families, which means we're doing the best for our pupils. And actually, we're doing the best for our staff, because they can only have a more informed picture on pedagogy if they're in that informed conversation with families.
Colin, I think you've given a school listening to this, Vijita, a development plan. Joe, what would you like to add to that?
I think I would echo all of that. And I've equally, encountered other schools at meetings that are quite reluctant. To us as a school, our ethos, is about supporting children in any way that we can and recognising all the angles of that. We can't teach our children effectively if we don't work with parents. And I think when you really listen to parents and what they go through, if you really truly are listening and you stop and you think about their perspective, you might put aside your concerns about accountability and your concerns about finer details of quality of evidence and comments and links to assessments and what this shows. And they are finer details, and a lot of that is concerned with teachers' planning, etc. When you stop and you put that to one side and you think about your parents and your families, to me, if that video is going to make a parent smile or a family smile or excite a sibling, you've got to send it. You've got to do it. Why else are we collecting this evidence? And I think it very much comes back to, like Vijita said, it's the why. Why are we doing this? Why are we using EFL? What are we teaching these kids and why are we doing it? And I think, schools are very good at adopting systems, and EFL can be viewed as a system by school staff, and a system becomes, a list of things that we then have to tick off and do. And, it's not about that. It's about the child and it's about family. And I think that needs to be the message. And that's difficult because obviously, it's a fantastic system. We've got all of our assessment in there now and everything links, but it's all evidence-based and supported by evidence. But I think it puts that worry onto teachers. A lot of teachers and school staff are perfectionists as well. And I think that's a difficult barrier. We like things to look just so. We like to show ourselves to be the best, that we're doing the best job. And that's because we're passionate about the children and we want the best for them. But sometimes getting the best for the children is not having the perfect piece of evidence. It's about sharing and celebrating and working together and being a team. And I think for me, that was the most exciting thing about discovering EFL. I've been a class teacher as well in my school for many years. And it was always the one thing that I wished that we had. You'd get these amazing moments and you would have no way of sharing that with the families other than picking up the phone and describing it. And as Barry said, words just are not the same. You have to see it. You have to see these things. And it's great. We've got EFL. We can see everything we want to see and we can share it. And to me, that should be the most important reason for using the system, and everything else should come second to that. So as Vijita says, it is a balance, and we've got to keep working at that balance.
And you've just made a very obvious point there, Joe, but one that actually you've sent my mind spinning, and it's just enabling me to draw together the threads of this conversation that we've shared together today. And it was evidence that evidence for learning is just about that. And evidence is power. Evidence is power to you as school leaders, but also as teachers, to articulate to Ofsted how your children have made progress, attained, achieved. It's power to our families to show other family members, as Maria said with her son sharing the yoga session, as Sadia has said, with all of that wider extended family that she defined and included in her circles of family support. But actually, in essence, it is power to our young people themselves, because those video clips tell their story of who they are, what they can achieve, and what their aspirations are. Why shouldn't they have a vision for their future? I remember Katie saying to me when she was probably the same age as Amaya is now, that she wanted to go to university like her older brother, at which I kind of took in a deep breath and thought, well, how do I persuade the UCAS system that Katie Carpenter really is eligible? Well, I couldn't. But like you, Sadia, I found a very good college that is just like a university, actually, in its dynamics and just that vibrancy that young people together have. But I so wish that I had the video clips that could convince people, because she went through that college and she passed NVQ and is a qualified waitress, hospitality and housekeeping, and to this day has never worked as a waitress because nobody would believe she could actually do those things. If I'd have had those videos, I could have showed them she can actually run the till in a restaurant and has the money management skills to do that. So I think, evidence for learning has brought us a 21st century evidence tool for 21st century children. That the technology, instead of dominating us for once, is truly serving the needs of our children, of their families, and of their schools. We are all combined in one central purpose. Today, each and every one of you has given such passion, such conviction, such rich insights of how, as we said in the title of our previous podcast on the theme of family-centered practice, how we talk to families, how we listen to families, how we work with families, with one central purpose: to get to the best evidence and outcomes for our children and young people. Thank you for what you've given today. It's going to be so valuable to so many people who get the privilege to listen to this podcast. Thank you once again to Evidence for Learning for offering us the platform to share this rich thinking. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. The homepage for the podcast is www.learningshared.org. Barry Carpenter's webpage is www.barrycarpentereducation.com, and you can email us at learningshared@theteachcloud.net or tweet us at _learningshared. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and please do get in touch with feedback if you'd like to either suggest a topic for a future episode or if you'd like to be involved in any way. Finally, you're welcome to join the conversation via one of our online communities of practice. We've got groups on Facebook and LinkedIn, and details are on the LearningShared web pages. So for now, thanks again for listening. Stay safe and be well.